Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. Linda gripped the edge of her seat as the exploration vessel cut through the thin atmosphere of the alien planet. Outside the viewport, the barren landscape sprawled out like an endless ocean of dust and rock, broken only by jagged mountain ranges and the faint outlines of ancient structures that loomed in the distance. This was what they had come for, the ruins of a long-lost alien civilization, rumored to have disappeared centuries ago. "This is it," Linda muttered under her breath, her fingers brushing over the edges of the notepad she'd kept throughout her entire career as an archaeologist. This discovery could change everything. "You nervous?" Jack's voice snapped her out of her thoughts. He was seated across from her, his feet casually propped up on the console. His relaxed posture was at odds with the gravity of their mission. "No, just thinking." She pushed her glasses up on her nose, glancing at the others in the cabin. Mira, their tech expert, was buried in her screens, tapping rapidly as she analyzed the scans. Commander Harris stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the horizon ahead. The comm crackled to life. "Touchdown in 2 minutes," came the pilot's voice. The team braced themselves as the craft made its descent, the ground drawing nearer with every passing second. Linda's heart raced in sync with the hum of the engines. Her mind churned with the possibilities, the stories these ruins could tell, the secrets buried beneath layers of time and sand. She was on the brink of the greatest discovery of her career, perhaps of human history. The ship landed with a soft thud, and the team disembarked into the eerie silence of the alien world. Linda felt the crunch of dust beneath her boots as she stepped onto the surface. The air was thin, but breathable, and there was a faint breeze that stirred the sand around them. "All right, team," Harris barked, his voice slicing through the quiet. "We've got 24 hours to gather data before the retrieval team arrives. Stay sharp. No unnecessary risks." Linda barely heard him as her eyes were drawn to the colossal structure ahead of them, a towering temple-like ruin, its surface weathered by time but still standing tall. Strange symbols were etched into its stone, half buried beneath layers of dirt and alien vegetation. "This is it," Linda said again, her voice barely above a whisper. She felt a pull, as if the ruins themselves were calling to her. She had studied countless ancient civilizations in her career, but none of them compared to what she was seeing now. "Let's move," Harris commanded, and the team began their slow approach toward the ruins. As they neared the entrance, Linda's pulse quickened. The symbols on the stone were more intricate up close, some of them strikingly familiar. She ran her fingers over the carvings, feeling the rough texture beneath her fingertips. "Strange," she muttered. "I swear I've seen something like this before." Mira glanced over her shoulder. "You think it's similar to anything we've found on Earth?" "Maybe," Linda said, her mind racing. "There are elements of these carvings that resemble early human symbols, ancient Sumerian, maybe Egyptian. But these, they predate all of that. By a lot." "That's impossible," Jack said, frowning. "You're saying these aliens influenced human culture?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Linda replied, her voice filled with quiet awe. "And if I'm right, this changes everything we know about human history." Harris stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "Let's not jump to conclusions just yet. We gather the data, take it back to the experts on Earth, and let them sort it out. We're not here to rewrite history on the spot." Linda nodded, though her mind was already racing ahead. She could feel it in her bones. This discovery was going to shake the foundations of human civilization. They continued deeper into the ruins, navigating through crumbling corridors and vast chambers filled with alien artifacts. Linda's eyes darted from one symbol to the next, her mind trying to piece together the puzzle. "This place is incredible," Mira said, her voice hushed with reverence. "It's like walking through a time capsule. Everything's so preserved." "It's almost too well preserved," Jack said, his voice tinged with unease. "Like it's been waiting for us." Linda didn't respond. She was too focused on the inscriptions covering the walls. As they ventured deeper into the ruins, the symbols became more elaborate, more complex. It was as if the aliens had left a trail of breadcrumbs, leading them toward something. Then, they reached the heart of the structure, a massive chamber with a circular platform at its center. In the middle of the platform stood a towering obelisk, covered in the same intricate carvings they had seen throughout the ruins. "This is it," Linda whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is the key." "The key to what?" Harris asked, his voice wary. "To everything," Linda replied, stepping toward the obelisk. "If we can decipher this, we'll know what these aliens were trying to tell us. We'll know how they influenced human history." Mira activated her scanning equipment, the hum of technology filling the chamber as she began collecting data. Jack circled the platform, his eyes scanning the room for any signs of danger. "Commander, I'm picking up some strange readings from this structure," Mira said, her voice tense. "There's energy here, something still active." Harris frowned. "Active? After all this time?" "Yeah," Mira replied, her fingers flying over her console. "But I can't pinpoint the source. It's like the whole place is alive." Linda's heart skipped a beat. Alive. The idea sent a shiver down her spine. Suddenly, the obelisk began to hum, a low, vibrating sound that seemed to emanate from the very core of the ruins. Linda stepped back, her eyes wide as the symbols on the obelisk began to glow with an ethereal light. "What the hell is happening?" Jack shouted, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. "I don't know," Mira replied, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and fear. "But whatever it is, we just activated it." The ground beneath them trembled, and the walls of the chamber lit up with streams of light, forming intricate patterns that spread out from the obelisk and across the room. "Get back!" Harris shouted, his voice filled with urgency, but it was too late. The obelisk emitted a blinding flash of light, and the next thing Linda knew, she was no longer in the chamber. She was standing in a vast field, the sky above her filled with strange, swirling constellations. She could feel the wind on her face, hear the distant sound of water flowing. Where am I?" she whispered, looking around in confusion. She wasn't alone. Figures began to emerge from the shadows, tall, elegant beings with elongated limbs and shimmering skin. They moved gracefully, their eyes glowing with intelligence and wisdom. "Welcome," one of them said, their voice resonating in Linda's mind. "You have come far to seek the truth." "The truth about what?" Linda asked, her voice trembling. "About your people. About your history," the being replied. "We were once like you. Lost, searching for meaning in the vastness of the universe. But we found the answers we sought. And we shared them with your ancestors." Linda's heart pounded in her chest. You influenced human civilization? You taught us?" "Yes," the being replied. "We saw potential in your kind. We guided you, helped you build the foundations of your culture. But you were not ready for the full truth. Now, you are." The scene around her shifted, and Linda found herself standing in ancient Mesopotamia, watching as the alien beings interacted with early humans, teaching them how to cultivate crops, build structures, and create written language. She saw the same symbols from the ruins etched into the walls of ancient temples, passed down through generations. "This is incredible," Linda whispered, tears filling her eyes. "We've been searching for answers for so long, and you were there all along." The being nodded. "Now it is time for you to take the next step. Your people have grown. They are ready for the knowledge we once shared. But it is up to you to guide them." Suddenly, Linda was back in the chamber, her heart racing. The obelisk stood before her, its glow fading as the chamber returned to its previous state. She gasped, struggling to catch her breath. "What just happened?" Jack asked, his voice filled with concern. I saw them," Linda replied, her voice shaky. "I saw the aliens. They were here. They influenced human civilization. Everything we know, our culture, our history, it all started with them." Harris stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "Are you saying these aliens were responsible for the development of human civilization?" "Yes," Linda replied, her voice filled with conviction. "And they're offering us a chance to take the next step. To learn from them again." Mira glanced at her console. "Commander, we've gathered all the data we need. But I think Linda's right. This discovery, it's bigger than we thought. We can't keep it hidden." Harris was silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the obelisk. Finally, he sighed. "All right. We'll take the data back to Earth. But we're not making any announcements until we've analyzed everything." Linda nodded, though she knew that this discovery would change the world forever. As they made their way back to the ship, her mind was already racing ahead. Humanity was about to enter a new era, one shaped by the knowledge of its true origins. Linda stared out the window of the exploration vessel as it ascended from the alien planet's surface, her mind still spinning from the discovery they had made. The landscape below slowly faded from view, replaced by the vast expanse of stars. But Linda wasn't thinking about the stars, she was thinking about the aliens, their influence on human history, and the monumental responsibility now placed on her shoulders. She still felt the lingering presence of the alien beings, their cryptic words echoing in her mind. It wasn't just the discovery of an ancient alien civilization that had shaken her, it was the revelation that humans weren't the pioneers they had believed themselves to be. They were students, shaped and molded by a more advanced species. The knowledge had been passed down through generations, forgotten over time but now rediscovered. "Linda, you okay?" Jack's voice broke through her thoughts. He stood at her side, concern etched on his face. She turned to him, her expression still distant. I can't stop thinking about what we saw down there. What it means." Jack sighed, leaning against the wall of the cabin. "It's huge. I get it. But we have to be careful about how we handle this. If people back on Earth find out too soon, well, I'm not sure everyone's ready for it." Linda shook her head. "That's the thing, Jack. We have no choice. This is bigger than us, bigger than any government or institution. Humanity deserves to know its true history." "Maybe," he said, "but there's always a risk when you challenge what people believe. You can't just rewrite history overnight without consequences." "I know," she said, her voice soft. "But this isn't just about history. It's about the future. The alien said we're ready to take the next step, but what does that even mean? What step are we supposed to take?" Jack didn't have an answer for her. No one did. They were approaching the command center of the ship now, the hum of the engines a constant background noise. Harris stood at the helm, reviewing the data they had collected from the ruins. His face was stern, focused. He turned when he heard them approach. "I've been going through the readings," Harris said without preamble. "There's enough here to shake up our entire understanding of human evolution, no doubt about it. But we need to be strategic about how we release this information." "Strategic?" Linda echoed, frustration creeping into her voice. "We can't just sit on this, Commander. This discovery belongs to everyone, not just a select few." Harris narrowed his eyes. "I'm not saying we bury it, Linda. But if we don't control the narrative, we could cause mass panic. Imagine what'll happen when people realize their ancestors were manipulated by an alien race. We need to think carefully before we act." Linda opened her mouth to protest, but Mira stepped in. "He's right, Linda. I don't like it either, but we have to be smart. If we rush this, we risk losing control of the situation." Linda sighed, knowing they had a point. The weight of the responsibility pressed down on her, heavier than she had anticipated. She had uncovered the greatest secret in human history, but what good would it do if the revelation caused chaos? She crossed her arms, staring out at the stars beyond the viewport. "So what do we do?" "We take the data back to Earth, share it with the people who can help us analyze it further," Harris said. "We'll need experts from every field: anthropology, linguistics, archaeology. Once we have a clearer picture, we can figure out the best way to present it to the world." It was a reasonable plan, but it didn't sit well with Linda. She wanted to act now, to share what she had seen and felt with the world. But she understood that this discovery was too big, too complex to be handled impulsively. "Fine," she said finally. "But I don't want this to be another secret locked away in some vault. People have a right to know." "They will," Harris assured her. "But we do it on our terms, not anyone else's." Linda nodded, though part of her still felt uneasy. She had seen the vision, she had felt the alien's presence, and she knew there was more to this than just uncovering humanity's forgotten past. There was a future in this discovery, something that could propel them to new heights if they were brave enough to reach for it. The rest of the journey back to Earth was a blur. Linda spent her days poring over the data, reviewing the scans and notes she had taken, trying to piece together the full scope of what they had found. But no matter how much she studied, the mystery only deepened. There were still so many questions, so many unanswered puzzles. She could feel the tension growing among the team as well. Jack, ever the realist, tried to keep things light, but even he was starting to show signs of strain. Mira was buried in her analysis, barely speaking to anyone unless it was about the data. Harris remained his usual stoic self, but Linda knew he was grappling with the enormity of the situation just as much as she was. Finally, the day came when they re-entered Earth's atmosphere. The familiar sight of the blue planet filled the view screen, but Linda felt no sense of relief. Instead, she felt a growing sense of dread. What would happen when they brought this knowledge home? As they touched down at the landing bay, a swarm of officials and scientists greeted them, eager for any scrap of information. Harris took charge, ushering the team through debriefings and security clearances, but Linda could sense the undercurrent of excitement and anxiety rippling through the base. "Linda," a voice called from behind her as they were escorted through the facility. She turned to see a tall man in a crisp suit approaching, his expression unreadable. Dr. Richard Moore, head of the Historical Studies Division. Linda shook his hand, her eyes narrowing slightly. "I assume you've been briefed." "Briefed, yes," Moore said with a tight smile. but I'd like to hear it from you." As they walked, Linda relayed the events of the mission, how they had discovered the ruins, the artifacts, and the inscriptions that pointed to an ancient connection between the aliens and humanity. She left out the part about the vision, though. That felt too personal, too delicate to share just yet. Moore listened carefully, his expression neutral but his eyes alight with curiosity. "This is monumental," he said after a long pause. "If what you're saying is true, it could revolutionize our understanding of human history." "It is true," Linda replied. "We have the data to back it up." "Of course," Moore said, his smile returning. "But there's a lot at stake here. We'll need to be cautious about how we handle this information. The world isn't always ready for the truth, no matter how important it is." Linda bristled at his words, feeling the same frustration she had felt with Harris. Why did everyone want to keep this discovery under wraps? "You sound like Commander Harris," she said, her voice sharp. "This isn't something we can hide." Moore raised an eyebrow. "I'm not suggesting we hide it, Dr. Grayson. But we do need to be strategic. This is world-changing information, and with that comes a great deal of responsibility. We need to ensure that it's presented in a way that's manageable." Linda sighed, the weight of it all pressing down on her again. She had thought the hardest part of this journey would be uncovering the truth. She hadn't realized that convincing the world to accept it would be an even greater challenge. They reached the briefing room, where the rest of the team was already seated. Linda took her place, her mind racing as the debriefing began. Questions were asked, data was presented, and yet, through it all, Linda couldn't shake the feeling that they were still missing something, some crucial piece of the puzzle that the aliens hadn't revealed, and then it hit her. The vision. The aliens had shown her the past, but they had also hinted at something more, something that humanity was on the verge of achieving. But what was it? And how were they supposed to find it? As the debriefing continued, Linda's thoughts drifted back to the obelisk, to the glowing symbols and the ethereal voices that had spoken to her. The aliens had given them the knowledge of the past, but they had also promised something more, a future that only humanity could unlock. The answer was there, buried in the ruins, in the data, in the history that was now theirs to uncover. But it wasn't just about understanding the past, it was about shaping the future. When the debriefing finally ended, Linda stood, her mind made up. She wasn't going to let this discovery be buried in bureaucracy and caution. The world needed to know the truth, and she was going to make sure they did.